What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kensei Sensei, and in this lesson, I'm going to be talking about quoting in Japanese. Quoting is basically whenever we make a reference to somebody by repeating what was said or thought by that person. In Japanese, we use the sentence particle to connect the quoted material and actions like yu, kiku, and omou. Let's get right in. So to begin with this lesson, we're going to be talking about the two types of quotes in Japanese. First is direct quotes. Direct quotes are basically whenever we repeat what was exactly said or thought by the other person. Whereas with indirect quotes, we are paraphrasing what was said without repeating the exact words. So for you to better understand the difference between direct quotes and indirect quotes, we'll first look at English examples. Take a look at this example sentence. She said, "I'm tired." In this case, we have "I'm tired" in quotation marks, and we are directly quoting what was said by this person. The quotation marks basically indicate that this was what was exactly said by this person. Now let's take a look at an indirect quote. She said that she was tired. In this case, we're not using any quotation marks, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we are repeating the exact words that were said. So with both direct quotes and indirect quotes in Japanese, we use the sentence particle to, but with direct quotes, we use Japanese quotation marks called kakko. And in Japanese, we don't use the quotation marks that we use in the English language. So the basic sentence structure of a direct quote in Japanese is first we have the quoted phrase inside the Japanese quotation marks, or the kakko. And then we have the sentence particle to, and we connect it to a verb like yu or omou and kiku. So let's take a look at some example sentences. 彼は今日は忙しいと言った. In this sentence, the quote is 今日は忙しい. And then we connect it with the action と言った. This sentence means he said, "I'm busy today," where "I'm busy today" is the direct quote. It is the exact words that he said. Let's take a look at another example. ここに座ってもいいと彼女が聞いた. This sentence involves a question. The question is, "Can I sit here?" And so the direct quote is ここに座ってもいい? And it was said by a girl. She asked, "Can I sit here?" Now let's talk about indirect quotes. With indirect quotes, we don't use quotation marks. Instead, we're just summarizing what was said or thought by another person. So in Japanese, we first take a clause that is in its plain form, and then we connect to, which is the sentence particle, to another action like yu, kiku, and omou. Now let's take a look at example sentences that involves indirect quotes. 彼は今日は忙しいと言った. This is very similar to the direct quote, however, we're not using any quotation marks, and because we don't use any quotation marks, it does not necessarily mean that we're repeating the exact words that were said. Let's look at another example. 彼女はここに座ってもいいか聞いた. This sentence means she asked if she could sit here. Again, it's very similar with the direct quotes, however, we're not using any quotation marks. Also, I want you to pay attention to how the clause ends. Because we're making an indirect quote to a question that was asked, we end it with か. 彼女はここに座ってもいいか聞いた. Now, basically, you can quote almost anything using the sentence particle to. But again, the sentence inside the quote, or the clause that's inside the quote, must be in its plain form. So an example of a verb clause would be 行くと言った. 行くと言った, which means they said they will go. An example of a noun clause would be something like 学生だと言った. They said that they are a student. An example of a na adjective clause would be 静かだと言った, which is they said it's quiet. We can even use e adjective clauses, where an example would be 寒いと言った. They said it's cold. So even when we're quoting polite speech, the clause that comes before the sentence particle to when quoting is in its plain form. And there's a casual variation to the to sentence particle, which is te. So if you want to be more casual with your sentence, instead of using to, you can use te. Let's look at some example sentences. あの人寝坊したって言ってたよ, which means that person said they overslept. Here, the direct quote is inside quotation marks, which is 寝坊した. And instead of connecting the quote with the to sentence particle, you can use te to connect it with the action. In this case, it would be itta, which is to say. Let's look at another example. 雨が降るって思ってたけど、晴れたね. This sentence means I thought it would rain, but it turned out sunny. In this sentence, we're using an indirect quote. The indirect quote is 雨が降る, and we connect it with the action 思った using te, which is a more casual way of quoting in Japanese. Lastly, let's talk about the toyu grammar. The phrase toyu is a flexible structure, and it is used when we are referring to names or labels, quoting what something is called, and quoting abstract ideas or rumors. So to better understand toyu, let's look at some example sentences. 鈴木という人から電話が来ました. This sentence means there was a call from someone named Suzuki. And in this sentence, we are clarifying the name of this person that gave us a call. To break the sentence down, 鈴木という人 basically means someone named Suzuki. We are referencing or quoting the name to clarify who gave us a call. Let's look at another example. 未来の食べ物という映画を見た. 未来の食べ物という映画を見た. This sentence means I watched a movie called Food of the Future. And again, we are clarifying the name or the title of this movie by connecting the title and the word movie. 未来の食べ物という映画 means a movie called Food of the Future. But that concludes today's lesson. I hope you learned something new, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to participate in a Japanese to English language exchange Discord server, make sure to check out the link below. But until next time, mata ne.